Ready to get the 1JZGTE engine all put back together. I have all the parts over there. All new gaskets, all new seals, new water pump. Thank you Twisted Motions and Juku Racing for a lot of these parts. Also, I think it was JDM Planet or something like that, and they got me the water pump, timing belt, front and rear main seals, and also the cam seals. So here goes nothing. Ready to start tearing into this. Doing this refresher today on my engine. We have Jimmy Joe Black's engine already done up here in a sense. We're just waiting on some more parts that we ordered. Our timing covers were screwed. I guess it's a really normal thing to see like bubbling and heat warpage in the lower timing cover. So we just went ahead and ordered some from our local JDM importer, and we should be having them by Monday or Tuesday sometime. So that way he can get his motor all buttoned up and it's ready to go pretty much. He just has to order the excessive mounts and throw it in his S14 and it has a home. Heading back to my engine now because it's the main focus today. All the parts I got are pretty much OEM Toyota, as closest to original manufacturer as I could have gone. As you see a lot of the Toyo part numbers on everything, original Toyota oil pump. Thank you Drift Motion as well. You guys are awesome. Great customer service from this company. I've done a lot of business since I've gotten this JZ. All gaskets, seals, O-rings, they're awesome. Oil lever sensor block off plate, idle air control valve block off plate since I'm running a Haltech standalone. Water outlet gasket, the valve cover grommets. I mean, these people are awesome. They got me everything I needed. Within 2 to 3 days it was at my door, so I can't complain. So let's get to it. What we put in are the cam seals. I don't like putting in any seals dry. I always try to hit them with a little bit of grease inside and out. It's fairly simple. Just slide in, push in, get into place, put them in till they're flush to this metal housing right here, and you should be good. Next, you're going to want to torque your water pump up to 15 foot-pounds, and that's on there. You good over there, bro? Yeah. Why are you dropping shit? Don't do that over my freshly painted car. What's wrong with you? So, this is a brand new oil pump I got from a 2JZGTE. It's supposed to have bigger oil passages and better flow from the 1JZ oil pump. Also, it's known to blow out the front main seal under high boost. So, the reason I went with the 2JZ oil pump, it's just an upgrade. Obviously, it's really hard to find a 1J oil pump because they don't make them in America. So, Juku Racing was able to hook me and my buddy Joe up. There he is. With our new oil pumps for our engine. Also, thanks to Drift Motion for making a lot of these seals, O-rings, and gaskets happen. I have the original OEM O-rings that go around here on the block portion of the engine for the oil pump. So I like to grease them up a little bit before I put them on, and that's that. As you saw in one of our previous videos, don't let this guy touch your damn silicone or freaking dielectric grease. Also, another good little practice before you slide this in, grease up your spline so it slides in nice and smooth. I'm applying blue thread locker on everything here. I already did it to the water pump, and now I'm doing it to the oil pump bolts as well. So I got everything nice and snug, hand tight. I use form in place gasket maker. I like it better than the quick dry stuff. It usually makes a better bond. I hand tightened everything, and now I'm going to let it sit for about a half an hour to an hour, and then I'll be torquing it down to 15 foot-pounds or 180 inch-pounds depending on what your torque wrench is reading. I'm using a 1/4 inch snap-on torque wrench. It's in inch-pounds, so that's why I'm stating it in inch-pounds instead of foot-pounds. We're going to put this plate on before you put your gears. I almost made that mistake. Use a crescent wrench or a box wrench if you have one that big to lock the cam gear in place, and then torque these bad boys down. I'll get right back to you on that torque. You're gonna have to torque these down to 59 foot-pounds, both of the cam gears. Obviously top dead center, make sure the piston's all the way up on the compression stroke. Also, from this timing mark to that timing mark, you should have 16 of these teeth. Count 16 in between, and you should be good to go. Alright, I'm onto the valve covers now. If you still have your old grommets on your valve covers and you got a pal in the shop, this is a good way to get them all off. Easy as that. I'm going to set your torque wrench to 74 inch-pounds for the valve cover bolts. Little blue Loctite. Your main seal is in. When you put it on there, you want it to be flush with that bracket that it goes mounted into. I just used a level and a mallet and it worked out pretty great how I got it to seat in there. So that's just a little bit of advice for you. Alright, so I got the oil pan sump on, pretty much the upper oil pan. There's going to be a mixture of 14mm, 12mm, and 10mm bolts. Just on this upper pan, you're going to have 12 and 14mm bolts. Those are going to be torqued down to 29 foot-pounds for the 14 and 15 foot-pounds for the 12mm. Now, all the 10mm bolts are for the baffle, pickup, and oil pan. Those are going to be at 78 inch-pounds, and those will be for all these. So that's that. I'm letting the silicone dry now for about 30 to 45 minutes, and then I'll torque all that down in sequence, and then I'll continue on to put the baffle, the pickup tube, and all the other stuff down here. So it's almost a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, I got that all torqued down to the proper torque specs. Now onto the baffle and the strainer pickup tube. That's all put in. This blue stuff you see here, that's just thread locker. I've been putting thread locker on every single last nut and bolt just for the hell of it. Everything down here, all these 10mm bolts on the pickup strainer, on the baffle, and along the oil pan, they all get tightened down to 78 inch-pounds. Alright, I got the oil pan on there hand tight. I'm going to let the form in place gasket sit for about 30 minutes to 45 minutes before I torque it down. Once again, just like the baffle and the pickup tube, the oil pan is going to be torqued down to 78 inch-pounds, guys. Alright, it's getting there.
MJ is almost fully put back together. I got the manifold on last night. I'm still waiting on an intake gasket. It sucks, but I got the wrong one. I know the description and the listing and the picture for the part showed that it was for a Vvti, and what I received, I believe, was for a non-Vvti. So
this is what I pulled out of the box. I need circular gaskets, as you see there on the runners. So that kind of set me back a few days. There's the manifold. Now, one thing I learned while doing this, I took all my studs out, one by one. Some of the nuts were stuck on the studs, so I had to get this inverted Torx key, put a wrench on the vise, PB blaster them, and just work them out so that the nut would come off the stud. I put anti-seize on all my studs and put them back in. Now all the nuts fit nice and freely. They don't get stuck or seized. Start doing the manifold. You want to start with the bottom bolts first. Get these started, but just barely spun on. The top stud nuts, whatever you want to call it. Get those just spun on barely. Start with the bottom ones. If you can get them threaded in as far as you can by hand, go for it, because it made life a lot easier doing it this way. I started with the top and I went to the bottom, and I felt like I just screwed myself doing it that way. So word of advice, this is the Twisted Motions manifold. Reason I got it, I heard a lot of crap about the CX Racing manifold, that it hits the motor mount right here because of the way they designed it. So as you see, I have plenty of clearance. I get to all my motor mount bolts, no problem. But as I was saying, these 14mm bolts on the exhaust, you can get the closed end of a box wrench on there, which is amazing that they made it that way. Sometimes you can't even do that on most manifolds when it's that close to a runner like that. So I give them props on that. Twisted Motions, they did a good job designing the manifold. Yeah, just word of advice, start from the bottom, get them all finger tight as you can, all the way butted up, and then work on the top ones. But I would recommend trying to get at least the bottom two corners there tight as you can, because you could actually get a socket on these bad boys. Then work, you know, on your two center ones, and then from there go there. I was able to get, like I said, 2 box wrenches on it. If you don't have the motor mount in place, hell of a lot easier, and it worked out pretty good. So thanks to Joe and the company that we order a lot of our gaskets from are in South Florida. So he was able to go meet up with the guy halfway and get it exchanged for the proper gasket. Alright, now that I got the proper intake manifold gasket, thanks to Blaggy, I have 5 bolts and 2 nuts in here. They all need to be torqued down to 20 foot-pounds. Alright, so she is about all buttoned up. Not 100%, but buttoned up enough for me to put the swap in the car. So that'll be happening here on part 2 of this build. But everything's pretty much ready to go, and it's looking very nice.